Joining us now, Fox News national security analyst and former Pentagon official KT McFarland. Let's get your, I know we do international things, ISIS and everything else, but let me start with Dallas. Your reaction to these comments about the fact that the president is an instigator?
You know, I am just so grieved for our nation when every time we have one of these terrible tragedies, what happens is all the politicians rush to their battle stations. The president says we've got to make sure that we don't discriminate against anybody. He talks about racism and he talks about taking away the guns. On the other side, they talk about the president's PC culture, that the president's stoking the flames. So what happens is we're even further apart after one of these incidents. I'd like to see a national leader, in fact, the only national leader, Tom, who didn't run to his battle stations was a non-politician in the group, and that's Trump. When the policeman killed the black man, he grieved for that. And when the black man killed the policeman, he grieved for that, and he stayed quiet. That was the appropriate thing to do. Don't make this a political issue, because it's only getting worse. We're only getting further and further away from each other and away from a solution.
The president in Warsaw, and so he's wrapping up. That's his last NATO visit. What's the status between him and NATO, and what's the health of NATO? Because you still got Vladimir Putin sitting there rattling the cage on Eastern Europe.
Well, I think actually we're headed for a crisis this summer. It's a perfect storm of things happening. Putin is looking at the Baltics. I was in the Baltics last month. That's those little countries, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and they're NATO members. And Putin is looking at those countries to think, maybe I'm going to do something to break apart NATO. And it's going to happen in the middle of the presidential elections with a lame duck American president. Europe is preoccupied with Brexit, with its economic crisis, with its migration crisis. And I think Putin's looking at that and saying, this is my moment. I may never have it this good. I'm going to take advantage of what I'm going to take advantage of. And I think that watch the time around the Olympics. My guess is Putin makes a move on the Baltics. Why is that a problem? Is because we just agreed to put forward deployed forces in the Baltics who can't defend against the Russians, but would be a tripwire.
Well, if he thinks we're not going to do anything and everybody's tied up with their conventions and the Olympics and everything else, what do you think he will do? Is he going to do another Ukraine?
Could do another Ukraine, could do another Georgia. Putin's goal is to, before Barack Obama leaves office, and before Putin may have to face a different American president, he's going to try to do everything he can to break apart NATO. And the way to break it apart is to show that it's a paper tiger. So if he makes a move on the Baltic states, either like he did with Eastern Ukraine, like a phony war where he's actually put special forces in but pretends he hasn't, or like he did with Georgia in 2008 during the Olympics, where he actually put the tanks across the border. Any one of those things is a possibility. I mean, I'm not saying it's a definite, but I'm sure looking at this summer at the Olympics particularly, Putin loves to do stuff during the Olympics. He did it in 2008, 14.
We'll see the little green armament again without any patches.
You might see that, but you also might see Russian tanks that would move very quickly and would take over the Baltics within 24, 36 hours.
So ISIS, you know, that we keep hearing about the fact that ISIS, oh my gosh, ISIS is on the run, oh, they're falling apart, they're losing all this territory and everything else, and yet it seems like there's more bloodshed continuing around the world. What's the game plan with ISIS?
You know, you're so right, Tom. I mean, the president and Secretary Kerry come out and say, look, we've got him on the run, we're doing really well, our strategy's working. Only a fool believes that, because look at ISIS. They've now launched attacks in Europe, North Africa, and Saudi Arabia, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, and we know that there are ISIS cells in all 50 states in the United States. They're not on the run. Or if this is what it looks like when ISIS is losing, what's it going to look like when they're winning? I mean, they are outsmarting us and one step ahead of every single move. Then we're always one step behind.
I think people forget that bombing in Baghdad, 200 people. And the other thing was Medina. My gosh, that's the burial site of Muhammad. You just don't do that. They are getting more brazen, it looks like.
They are. And I think in the end, the fight is going to be over Saudi Arabia's holy sites. It's going to be Iran on one side and the Shiite fanatics, and it's going to be ISIS on the other side and the Sunni fanatics. And I think this fighting doesn't stop anytime soon. You've
been very right on calling the future. KT McFarland, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom.
You bet.